Hello and welcome. This is a conversation with Curt Jaimungal. I've been familiar with Curt because of his online exploration into theories of everything, where he is pursuing truth in a very interesting and deep way. He has a YouTube channel and podcast called Theories of Everything, TOE, where he speaks with the likes of Chomsky, Pinker, Weinstein, McGilchrist, Kastrup, and Vervaeke, some of the most brilliant minds of our time. He also has a documentary called Better Left Unsaid, which has just been released. There's a link to his documentary in the description. This was the first conversation that we have ever had. My only plan for the conversation was to start by asking him what he is doing with theories of everything, and then ask him to articulate why he is doing that and go from there. Prior to recording, the main things that I communicated to him were that I was much less concerned with how our conversation sounds to the audience and much more concerned with just digging in and digging out something useful together, and that I wanted it to be a simple, free conversation, just a conversation between two guys, rather than a formal type of interview where I was just asking him question after question. I will add a brief note at the end of the conversation where I'll again mention the documentary. I hope that this conversation is meaningful to you in your pursuit of truth. I do believe it was in mine. And now, my conversation with Curt Jaimungal. I guess a good place to start is, could you just explain what you're doing with Theories of Everything?
Theories of Everything is a podcast. Although I don't like to think of it as a podcast, I think of it more as there's a goal, there's an end goal, there's a mission associated with it. Which the mission is to explicate toes and potentially advance our own. When I say our, I mean the community, because I don't want this to be about myself. In fact, right now it's called Theories of Everything with Curt Jaimungal. And I noticed this trend in some podcasts to go from their divergent name and then their actual name to their actual name. So for example, Artificial Intelligence with Lex Friedman became Lex Friedman. And then
Exactly.
Modern Wisdom with Chris Williamson became Chris Williamson. Mm-hmm. And I imagine, I'm not saying that I imagine that I'll try to do the opposite, because it may just become Theories of Everything rather than Theories of Everything with Curt Jaimungal, because I want this to be more about theories of everything than about myself. I'm more a vessel for these conversations and for the audience who have brilliant questions, far surpassing what I can come up with on my own often.
Yeah.
And then their discussions in the Discord are great. Okay, so the whole point is to survey the entire field of theories of everything, of which there are approximately 200 that I've seen. And I'm including theories of consciousness on that. So explain them all, distill them, decoct them, and then perhaps even come up with our own. A syncretistic approach.
Interesting. I haven't heard you, maybe you have in other places, but I haven't heard you explicate the goal in that way before, the mission, the long-term goal. Okay. Yeah, this is kind of new information. So it's what I'm first realizing is how much that is kind of community-minded, and how sure you feel, or how sure you are now, that you want it to be a community thing, that it's certainly not Curt and Curt's experiment, and that it's what were you going to say?
Well, it's when I speak with people, there's an extremely selfish reason I'm speaking. I'm extremely curious and I want to know the answers to these questions. So I treat it, like I mentioned, office hours before, where I'm just one-on-one with the professor. And if there's questions that I have, I'm not particularly concerned with the audience when I'm in the moment.
Same. Yeah, no, I'm the exact same. But when you talk about the long-term goal, it's like, it sounds very community-wise. And even to say that it's Theories of Everything with Curt turning into Theories of Everything, that was kind of went into the name of this podcast, this, tiny, very, I certainly won't call it insignificant, significant to me, but
for sure,
small audience numbers wise podcast. Going into, I was trying to decide with my best friend Caleb, who's doing it with me, what are we going to call it? And we had this aversion to involving our names. And we had to come up with, well, really, like the actual podcast is basically just inquisitive. And so we were like, well, the whole thing, like what we want to get out of this is it's similar. I think it's similar to what you're doing. We just want to get some answers. We want to get to the bottom of things as efficiently and helpfully as possible. But I also didn't want to just call it, questioning or some sort of inquiry. I wanted it to have a moral call to it. That every time I think of it, it's like it's hearkening back to the ultimate goal. So it's centered around value. But and so we just called it adopt responsibility because that could apply to just kind of whatever it turns into. It's like, well, whatever it becomes, just, it's basically just saying like do good or whatever, just very basic, agape within logos. That's something that, sorry. Oh yeah, we have, it's going slow. That's great. That's great. That's exciting. I was expecting for it to be half done at this point. That's something we can talk about in a minute. The Peterson Vervaeke conversation that just happened. But before we get there, I want to keep talking about theories of everything. Is this, when you say theories of everything, and you mentioned theories of consciousness, and that's extremely interesting to me. And I'm so thankful. Honestly, I'm so thankful to you and whatever's inside of you driving you to do this, because for me and so many people like me, who are just desperately thirsty for more and more answers. And I think probably very open people in general, like I'm guessing your audience is way on the openness side. Would you agree with that? Do you think that's true?
The majority of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's this seeking and seeking and seeking. And so I'm so thankful to you. And just in the same way, I'm thankful to people like Vervaeke, or Jordan Peterson, where it's like something inside of them is pursuing the logos, pursuing the truth and the relationship between truth and us. But also there's also a theme with the people I'm selecting when I select you, Vervaeke Peterson. It's people whose pursuit of logos is defined by agape. It's defined by love. Truth in pursuit of love, or truth in service of love. Anyway, but when you say theories of everything, are you, because I know this is, I know you have a background in physics and mathematics, or is it just physics?
Physics and math.
Yeah. Is this, or at least has it started, or do you think it will always be like, isn't theories of everything really about, trying to make sense of the laws of physics in a way, and our observation of the physical world? And is that what you're after, or is it something more like, when I see your podcast, when I listen to your podcast, it seems more like a religious quest?
Mm-hmm. Initially, there's something in physics called grand unification, which usually has to do with the strong and the weak, or electroweak force, unifying them under a larger symmetry group. And then some people call grand unification a unification of that with gravity. So initially, the theory of everything was that a grand unification project for me, because I'm trained classically as a materialist physicist. And then
can you define materialist there? Sorry.
Yep, sure. It's the standard view in academia, at least the standard professed view. It's the standard public view that there exists an objective world, and we're investigating this objective world as subjective creatures. And this objective world consists of matter that doesn't have a spiritual or conscious element to it, but that is an emergent quality, a strong emergent quality. So what strong emergence means is that there's a difference between weak and strong emergence. Strong emergence, that there's an entirely new phenomenon.
I know. Yep.
Okay.
Strong emergence. Yeah. Strong emergence. This is not my criticism, and I don't think I heard it on your podcast. But strong emergence, is there a difference between strong emergence and just the word magic that you can define?
Well, See, I wouldn't go there, because I see the critiques that the materialists have against the spiritual types, and then there are snarky comments that the spiritual types would make about the materialists. And I understand I understand it, because both sides dislike one another, or at least seemingly so. I wouldn't engage in calling it magic, because I don't want to participate in any dyslogistic euphemisms, not euphemisms, sorry, epithets.
Yeah, which side would even be the epithet slinger in that case? Because I can't tell whether that would be the spiritual side saying, oh, you with your materialist theories, you're just engaging in, you're just pulling out of nowhere. You're just trying to just admit it. You're just, when you get to strong emergence, you're just saying, oh, this just happens. And it's just like claiming magic. Or would it be the physical materialist saying to those who present strong emergence, oh, that's totally crazy and silly. Like, I don't even know which side would be the insult slinger in that example.
Yep. Okay. Well, magic has a connotation with it of the supernatural. And so whereas strong emergence is about, there's a phenomenon that it's difficult to use a reductionist approach to predict the phenomenon from. Difficult or
the
impossible.
End of reduction, would you say? Like, you can reduce up to a certain point, and then at a certain point.
Yeah. I don't think strong emergence is compatible with reductionism, actually.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, interesting. Okay. So it started really in physics.
And as I interviewed people like Bernardo, as you mentioned, Bernardo was a major turning point for me. Major turning point, because he's an extremely bright, articulate individual who puts forward idealism, which is a case as a physicist that you hear and you just roll your eyes at. But he puts forward a brilliant case if you're a scientist, which scientists have to follow what's called parsimony. Sorry, what's called Occam. Well, Occam's razor, parsimony.
Right. Yep. Sorry, I don't want to just because I'm so familiar with your material, I don't want to just cut straight to, cut through defining terms. That would be helpful for anybody who's listening. The parsimony, that's pretty much what, in his conversation with Vervaeke, that felt to me like where Vervaeke was like, kind of, you kind of have to, like you say, as a scientist, it feels almost like a scientist listening to Castro at some point has to kind of grit their teeth and go, oh, like that's really compelling because it is so parsimonious. Let me bring this back to something I mentioned, the conversation between Peterson and Vervaeke. At a certain point, which you have not listened to. I've listened to it maybe 3 or 4 times now. And that's just because you're really busy and your busyness doesn't involve, hands-free, headphones in time like mine does. So Peterson, Vervaeke, at one point in the conversation, this is something that's just been ringing in my ears since I heard it. It's actually Peterson who says it. He says, for so long, I'm kind of taking many things he said over time, but mainly he said this in that podcast. He said, for so long, I've thought that the mystery was consciousness. I thought that I was looking at the objective world and imagining that I was part of that objective world and looking at consciousness, and consciousness Peterson was the mystery. This is my, you'll see when you listen to it. This is my paraphrasing of multiple things. I'll tell you when I get to exactly what he said. Okay. What he actually said is, I don't think that, first he said, hey, Vervaeke, hey, John, isn't it interesting that you and I are so focused on the relationship between consciousness and reality? And I don't know exactly what he means by reality, but I imagine, the objective, maybe the material world or so. But he says, isn't it interesting that you and I correspond so well, and both of us are so focused on this mystery of the relationship between the two? So that's something he said. And then, but the thing that's been ringing in my ears is he goes, the mystery I don't think the mystery is consciousness. I think the mystery is reality, consciousness. And this is so much like, this comes straight back to Kastrup in my mind, because it's like, no, awareness, conscious awareness is the given. And that's it even harkens back to Descartes, cogito ergo sum, right? And so I think, therefore I am, which I've kind of heard it analyzed or whatever as a little bit better. Maybe I'm consciously aware, therefore I am. Do you have anything to say about that? Just about Descartes?
Yeah, what I have to say about that is that Descartes also assumes what he's trying to prove within there, because what he's saying is I, therefore I.
Right.
So
yeah, he's not right. He's still grasping at, he's assuming, he's still grasping at kind of an emergence, even to make that sentence, isn't he?
Well, what I'm saying is that he's not saying much. He thinks he's deriving the I, but he's also assuming the I.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, what I'm curious about with regard to Peterson, because I haven't listened to that, is he now an idealist? Does it sound like that?
No, this is not a big part of the conversation. I certainly wouldn't say that he's an idealist. No. What I would say is he's always been very focused on the relationship between consciousness, between conscious awareness and the external world that we're conscious of. And I think he's just kind of pointing back to that mystery. But it's just the thing, like I say, the thing that struck me in the conversation is he says the mystery is not consciousness. The mystery is reality. Yeah. And like I say, that takes me back to Kastrup, and that's why I brought this up, because Kastrup is making like you say, Occam's razor analysis of reality and our awareness of reality, and going like, hey, like the awareness and the consciousness, that's it's a easier theory to swallow, that's the most fundamental,
Mm-hmm. This is one of the reasons why I'm unsure if I believe in Occam's razor. I think Occam's razor and parsimony is a reductionist account, and I'm not sure if I believe in reductionism. Also, with regard to Kastrup, something I'm wondering is, why isn't he a solipsist?
Can you explain?
He's a distributed solipsist. So why doesn't he say that with parsimony, I'm the only one that exists? Because to me, that's even more parsimonious.
Right.
So it's as if his parsimony has stopped at one level. Now he'll say that, well, to some degree, he is a solipsist, except it's distributed solipsism. He hasn't used this word, but it's as if we're all branches on the same underlying tree. But I don't see why
it's not more parsimonious to just say I am a leaf on that, or I am the tree. Yeah. Interesting. Do you think there's something, or can you think of something deeper from his perspective, other than, like, it seems to me like no, let me not say that about him. If I was to believe a distributed version, what do you call it? Solipsism?
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain that word?
Solipsism means that you're the only one that exists.
Right. So it seems to me like if I was to do that move that he's done, it would be because I seem to be unaware, a real thing that's aware of something. And when I talk to people, they believe the same thing, or they seem to kind of be in the same place. And so I'm trying to make a theory of how we can both be there. And I don't want to have the ego to say that I'm the only real thing. Do you is there something that you've heard from him that's more maybe scientific than that?
No, I don't know. I haven't asked him this question. I think I may have, but I don't remember. So this is the only pressing question that I have. I think that, I don't know.
Okay. And what do you think about, is it accurate to say that his version of idealism is I think it's absolute idealism, isn't it?
Analytic idealism.
Analytic idealism.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Analytic because it's a Western tradition. So he mentioned in the interview with me that if he was to do this arguing in front of Rupert Spira, which he showed Rupert Spira his PhD defense, which is somewhat like a propositional attack from people, and then you have to defend your stance. Rupert Spira said, why do these people make it so hard? Why do these people make what's so obvious so hard? Okay, and the reason is because Bernardo's operating in the Western frame of analytic philosophy, which is argumentation. You can think of it like that, versus it's not even European philosophy versus Eastern philosophy, which is more experiential.
Right. Interesting. Can you, I know when you spoke with Vervaeke, he kind of stopped you at some point and he made a distinction between logic and rationality. I don't know if you remember this. It was a conversation from long ago.
I think it was reason and rationality.
Oh, it was
if
logic.
It was logic and rationality. I don't recall then.
Okay. It was logic and reason, or logic and rationality, I think. Because I think it was, at least when he spoke about it, you might not have used the word logic. Anyway, that's not important. But he says logic is about cohering the relationship between two propositions or multiple propositions, whereas rationality is about cohering me and the world, or something like that. And that, do you see an east-west distinction in that?
Yeah, I do.
And do you see
pretty much what you've outlined?
Yeah. Okay. And do you see, because Vervaeke has, I'll be very brief with this. He has 4 different types of knowing in his cognitive science. Jonathan Vervaeke is who I'm speaking of, someone who I've come to just admire so much and just love the guy. Here's another thing. Vervaeke admits, sorry, I know I'm going all over the place. In his conversation with Peterson, he admits, I don't know why I'm using that word. He says to Peterson, for some reason, my fans or viewers keep telling me that they see the Spirit of Christ in me. And Peterson basically goes like, oh, what a thing for you to hear. Why do you think you're hearing that? And I, as far as I perceive the conversation, they kind of work out that it's because Vervaeke is embodying the logos in pursuit of agape, or at least those are his axioms. Those are his highest, not his axioms. Those are his highest values. And so he's pursuing logos truth, and he's pursuing agape love. And so that's just so Christian. And so people keep seeing Christ in Vervaeke, and I believe that's what I see in you. I believe that's what I see in you. That's what I see in Peterson. And this is what makes these conversations really meaningful to me. It's not just the propositions. It's not just the pursuit of propositional knowledge. It's not just the pursuit of facts. It's facts in service to ultimate value. Yeah.
Though I wouldn't say Christ is in me. Christ is in me to the degree Christ is in all people, but I would say the devil is in me. And I don't know how much I'm driven by the devil than I am Christ, and how much of what I think is good is actually evil and selfish and narcissistic and malicious.
As defined by who? Just as defined in a way that you can't understand, do you mean?
Even as defined as, well, narcissism is fairly well defined. And then for selfish is similar. Malicious.
I know you use the word evil though.
I use the word devil. I would say as the devil, as in the adversary of God.
Right.
As in the Christian terms.
Right.
Or the Jewish terms, or even somewhat the Muslim terms, as far as I can understand.
Yeah. So maybe I don't know about that. I don't feel like I feel like you are saying, oh, it's kind of ambiguous how much I'm serving the top of the hierarchy versus the bottom of the hierarchy. Is that language that you are familiar with, or at least that you kind of see what I'm saying?
No, I think you can only serve the top of the hierarchy. I'm just saying, I don't know what's at the top of mine. I hope that it's God, but I don't think it is.
So maybe when I say I see the Spirit of Christ in Vervaeke, I see it in Peterson, I see it in you, maybe does it help if I just, rather than saying that, I say the you that you present in Theories of Everything and present to the world through your podcast and stuff like that?
It's fine for you to see it. You can see whatever you like, and I'm glad that that's what comes across. I'm saying that I hope that's what comes across, and I wouldn't make any claims that I'm doing a service to the world. I don't know if I am. I may be doing more harm than good. So, well,
but don't you? Here's where I take it back to: don't you, in order to imagine that or propose that or even question that, aren't you assuming some sort of like good? Do you know what I mean? Aren't you assuming that there is morality?
Yes. But it doesn't mean I'm in service to the good.
Right.
This is like what Peterson brings up plenty about Dostoevsky, about people are aimed down, consciously aimed down, even if they know the good.
So, okay. So I think I want to just take a step back. Sure. Do you have anything to say about what is that good? Do you have any inclination to what's up there at the top of the hierarchy?
It seems to have something to do with truth. It seems to have something to do with love. And then it also seems to have something to do with God.
Right. I think that's about the level of sureness. I would probably answer the same question. Like it has something to do with.
Yeah, and just so you know, my primary, like, I'm a horrible interviewee because my primary position on most issues is I don't know. I'm extremely asinine and know very little about almost every topic outside of math and physics, and even in there, it's
hold on. But isn't this a form of knowing? Isn't like that is Vervaeke calls you a little Socrates at some point? Isn't this a form of a higher type of knowing? Just being aware of your lack of propositional knowledge.
It could be. It could be. I wouldn't make that claim. Like Vervaeke can call me whatever he likes, but I don't know. Look, I'll tell you one other reason. I could be motivated by cowardice, and I'm simply afraid to state an opinion because I'll be criticized one way or the other. And so I don't know how much of me saying I don't know is driven by that. The reason, like, you mentioned in our emails that I'm an agnostic. I don't think I claim to be agnostic. I would say that I just don't know.
Can I quote you? You say, I'm so agnostic, I'm not even agnostic.
Right. Because obviously by my actions at all, I'm implying a value hierarchy by my actions. And I'm in lubricous ground when it comes to beliefs. I stand tentatively. I don't know. I'm. What
do you mean by beliefs when you say it in that sense?
By theories of everything. I don't know what theory, what philosophy I am. I see the good and the bad, or I see the pros and the cons. I see critiques in virtually every direction. I haven't found something that I cannot critique in my own head.
Right. I think all people are in that place in relation to the world, like in relation to kind of everything. And anything that people say is like a fiction. I think until someone has there's no certainty. Ian McGilchrist says in a conversation once, and he said
with Peterson or with myself.
No, with I think Modern Wisdom or one of those types of it was in a conversation with Vervaeke on Modern Wisdom or so.
Wait,
he says
Ian McGilchrist knows Vervaeke? I didn't know that they even spoke.
Oh, it was a great conversation.
Man, you're extremely versed in this subject, man. Congrats.
Thank you. Let me make a quick pause. You mentioned your bad interviewee. This is exactly what I was hoping for, where we could, you mentioned that like 2 minutes ago to me. And it's because you don't know you don't just go, you said it's because I don't know anything. Let me rephrase that. It's because you don't pretend to, or you don't make some jumps. And I'm not saying that people like Vervaeke are just making jumps. Something Kastrup said to Vervaeke in your guys' second conversation was, he goes, this is totally a theory. It was when he was talking to you on a more personal level, maybe 3.5 hours in or so. He's like, I'm going to present something to you. It's just popped in my mind. It's a total theory, and I have no idea if it's true, but I'm going to present it to you as if I just totally believe it as a fact, because that's the easiest way, because I don't want to keep, I don't want to keep just saying, I'm not sure about this, but boom, 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 boom. And so do you remember that?
No, it sounds familiar though.
Yeah. Okay.
So Vervaeke said that, you're saying, or Bernardo?
No, Kastrup said that. Bernardo, you know him on a first name basis. But yeah, this is what I was hoping for, where we could just augur in pretty much. And I think that's what I'm always after. It's funny. Rogan said to Peterson at one point, he's like, man, that first conversation you had with Sam Harris, where you guys just augured in on what does it mean? What is truth? Rogan says to Peterson, like, oh, that was so hard to listen to. You guys just need to, like, if you're not getting to an answer, just go to the next question. And I'm the opposite. I'm the exact opposite. I listened to that whole conversation. I'm like, guys, like, I want you to actually augur in. Like, why is this only 1 hour? And how come next conversation you don't just pick up right where you left off? Because I'm not after this fun little fancy conversation. I'm after the answers. I think that's what so many of us, the people who are not drawn to your channel by UFO videos, and I don't mean that as a criticism at all.
Sorry?
I said, the people who are drawn to your channel, but not the ones who are drawn to the UFO videos. I don't mean that as a criticism to you.
No, I'm not. I don't take it as that at all. Not at all.
But those of us who are drawn to your channel is because this is a resource where it's like office hours, like you mentioned. It's like you just get to the point and then you just dig in. And I'm looking all over. This is why I'm talking to you right now. This is what I'm after when I'm looking for resources, is like, I actually want to get a little bit better knowledge of the truth. And the reason I need that is because my kids and my grandkids need the wisdom that I can glean from just my direction towards the logos to be just fixed by just a tiny bit. And I don't get that by nice conversations. I don't get that by just niceties, or let's talk about 12 different subjects in the next hour. I get that when things augur right into what's the most real. And that's what draws me to your content. That's what I think probably draws a lot of us.
Yeah, I have a similar view. So augur implies that you're digging. And I like to say that most of the podcasts, I don't like to say this, sorry, I do say this, that most podcasts that I've seen are somewhat superficial. And there's a reason for that. It's because they're imitating the TV format, such as Neil deGrasse Tyson
selecting for shallowness, right? Yeah.
Right, but unconsciously, because it's an extension. YouTube's almost an extension of TV. And you also wonder, well, would my audience be able to follow if I go into some abstruse mechanics that other people, the laity, the people outside the profession, have no clue what it's about? And why should I do that? Wouldn't I risk turning people off? Well, for me, that's why I say that it's a selfish endeavor. This theories of everything, one of mine. That's what allows me to go somewhat technically. That's what allows me to get into somewhat of a technical depth.
So what is this self when you say it's selfishly motivated? I really want to get back. I wrote down the whole quote from Ian McGilchrist. So that's just to mention. I want to get back to that. But what is this self?
Okay. What do I mean when I say selfish, or what is self?
No. What do you mean when you say, like, what are you after? This is my first question. What is theory of everything, and why are you doing it? You're sacrificing, you're doing something that almost nobody else is doing. Maybe, yeah, this is something that people don't generally do. We have so much evolutionary drive to so many other things. And here you are sacrificing so much. You're extremely smart. You could do, you could be at the top of a lot of human hierarchies if you so desired. Instead, what you're doing, you're sacrificing that ability in the pursuit of something with this project.
In pursuit of selfishness. So don't trust me. I'm being honest. I'm curious. I've always wondered.
But what is that thing curious in you? What is telling you?
I don't know. Okay. But since I've been a teenager, or even since I was let's say 8 or 9, I've wondered about the large questions in life. Why are we here? And also then what are the laws? How does a particle even follow the laws? And why these laws?
Yeah.
What are the laws? Why these laws? And then how does a particle follow the laws? There seems to be an answer for that last one, but but it also seems to answer all three, at least according to Chris Langan. Which, by the way, if I seem tired at all, the reason is that man, Matthew, there's this guy named Chris Langan. He has the highest IQ recorded.
I know.
Not just right. Okay,
yeah.
So they say in America, it's true, highest recorded in America, but it also seems to be the highest recorded in the world. They just say America because it was recorded in America. Regardless, he has such unexampled theory that I can't compare it to others, and I almost have to. Let's say I'm interviewing a physicist. I can draw from my knowledge of physics. Okay, but when I'm interviewing or philosophy, or whatever it may be, for virtually each one of the guests. But when it comes to Chris Langan, he starts from such a ground level of such generality, and there's like 20 neologisms in each sentence. So I need to constantly go and look up, what does he mean by so and so? It took so much out of me. I was just drinking I don't like to drink caffeine. I even write in my calendar the days that I drink caffeine because I like to limit my usage of it. But I was drinking so much caffeine, studying. Oh. Yes. Each day that I would then stay awake, irritable at night and miserable. And then I have to wake up early to do the same thing the next day, which it was so unhealthy for me. But anyway, it took its toll physically on me, not so much mentally. Ian McGilchrist, if anything, was mentally
so much material or destabilizing. Chris, you said
for Ian McGilchrist was mentally destabilizing. For Chris, it was physically so, because I just was on basically stimulants the whole day with caffeine, and it wrecked me. So I'm still a bit recovering from that. Okay, what was the question? I apologize.
It's okay. I don't remember exactly what the question was. It started with, what is this self? What is this thing motivating you?
Okay, so that's why I'd say it's selfish. Yeah. I'm just curious. I'm wondering. I'm a inquisitive person. I like to know. I don't like when I don't know.
Okay. So when I hear you say that, I am imagining that what is inside of you, I'll use these words just because I can't say it any other way. What is inside of you asking? When you say selfish, it sounds like in service of ego or something, just because we've messed up those words.
Yes.
But when you say in service, you are serving this thing. To me, it just seems like obviously you're serving the logos, and the logos is the thing inside of you. That I'm not trying to compliment you, Curt. I'm not trying to compliment you or like flatter you or whatever.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, when I say I see Christ likeness in you or Vervaeke, it's like, what I mean is the embodiment, but also the spoken embodiment. So it's not just non-propositional, it's propositional as well. It's spoken embodiment of Christ, the logos. And so to me, when I hear you say that, I see like, well, obviously when he says he's selfish and what he's serving is the self, it's the logos in you desiring that knowledge. And it's maybe future Curt, or maybe not Curt, maybe future 600 generations from you when we get to heaven or whatever. We don't have to go there, but it's future unity,
go wherever you like
with God. It's God. It's the God, the Spirit of Christ within you. I can't say it any other way. It's the logos. It's the Spirit of Christ within you.
Okay, great. Thank you, man. I just hope it is. I don't know if it is, but thank you.
No, but like what I'm saying is kind of by definition, if we're going to use these words, it's the logos. It's the pursuit of real truth, as opposed to the pursuit of ego or the pursuit of, and so like.
Yeah, but that assumes what I'm saying is, okay, there's obviously an element of ego associated with it because my face is on it and I'm getting paid now. And so how much of this is because I'm narcissistic or because I want fame or because I want money? And I would say that consciously that there's a modicum of that, but who knows about unconsciously? I don't know how much of it is maybe that's 90% it. So I always found that the more that I say this out of humiliation. I've been humiliated many times in my life, not publicly, but privately, mentally, and emotionally by being arrogant and thinking that I was good.
Yeah.
And whatever, that I had some quality that was associated with good. And I found that the more I investigate, the more I realize that there's malice underneath, or rancor, or wrath, or self-loathing, or self-protection, or insecurity. And thus I'm so hesitant to make any claim about that, despite whatever conscious appraisal I may have. I then just beat myself and say, don't think that, you don't know, man, you don't know. And 6 months from now, man, every year for sure, and definitely every 2 years, and sometimes every 6 months, if I look back at my work, I cringe profusely, because I just see the affectation and the flaws and that's enough.
So this takes back to McGilchrist's quote. It's at precisely 30 minutes in to his conversation with Vervaeke. Exactly 30 minutes and 0 seconds. Certainty doesn't exist. Okay, let me just mention, this is off the top of his head. This is not deliberated and written and then expressed. I mean, obviously it has poetic, been over time. Yeah, this is what he says just quickly off the top of his head. Actually, I don't know if it was quick. I might have been listening in like 1.5 speed. Certainty doesn't exist. Certainty is a fiction. It would depend on truth being a thing out there which we can grasp, whereas truth is a matter of the coming together of things, which is always a matter of negotiation. So we negotiate with reality and we change the gestalt that we see. We don't add another thing to a line we're pursuing. I don't know exactly what he said or what he meant in that sentence. We don't add another thing to a line we're pursuing. We shift the gestalt, the whole picture, and then we see more. And what a truer gestalt is simply one that explains more than the previous one. So it's truer, which sounds very William Jamesian, pragmatist, kind of like truer, closer, but never claiming absolute.
Yeah.
And that, like, yeah, there's something about the way that you, like, when I wrote on my thing, why does Curt claim agnosticism? Because this is something that you and I know we only have a few minutes, which is...
Don't worry, keep going.
Yeah.
This is something that...
I remember...
With regard to agnosticism.
Yeah. Okay, let's go there. This is something that you and I differ on. And in so many things, like even in what you're saying about... in your spoken word, you consistently claim to not know anything. And you like to say that a lot. And you have no idea what your real motivations are. And I would say on those regards, I'm so similar to you. And I think of what I'm doing very similarly, but whether I'm agnostic or not, yeah, like, I mean, you just told me that you don't claim to be an agnostic. What you said was, I'm so agnostic, I'm not even agnostic. I just don't know anything. And for me, I don't perceive knowledge as just what set of, suppositions I subscribe to. Knowledge is more like embodiment or enactment. Maybe that's a more Eastern thing to say. And so when I think of myself, I think I say, kind of in a Petersonian sense, I am a Christian, or at least I haven't said that to anybody in a long time because I've been afraid to, because of the judge that is upon me. But that's when I say about you or Vervaeke, I see the Spirit of Christ in you. It's like that part of you that I see is pursuing the logos, and that's Christian. And if I am whatever part of me is also doing that, that's Christian. It's not just totally agnostic. So,
well, let me ask you this about that. Is it Christian if through my pursuit, I ultimately come to deny the resurrection of Christ.
Absolutely. It has, absolutely, yes. And this is how atheists can be and are many times the Christians of our day, because they're in the pursuit of logos in a way that those who propose the propositions. Yeah, okay.
There's something called virtuous pagans. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's like Christians before Christ. I don't recall the philosopher of the 3rd, 2nd, 4th century who coined that term, but he basically said Socrates was a Christian.
Yeah, and I would say that exactly. I would just say Christ is the model of logos in pursuit of agape, and he did it. The theory or the belief of Christ, like I have no idea whether he resurrected. I have no idea. People get so uncomfortable when they hear me say this kind of stuff on both sides. I have no idea if he resurrected. I have no idea if he was a real person. This is my Bible.
Mm-hmm.
My wife just gave this to me for Father's Day, like a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I'm a Christian because though I don't know if a single proposition in that book is accurate, it's accurate. It's true like an arrow is true. So I don't know if it's scientifically factual, a single proposition in that book. But I'm a Christian because she handed me that book. It was a profound experience. I held it and I wept like a baby for 30 minutes. I just cried. I don't want to use the word understand. It's despicable how the English language has become so Cartesian and so lacking of language that we used to have. So I don't have language for it, but I'll try my best. There is something inside of me that understands the value of this beyond proposition. And it's something like the participatory knowledge that Vervaeke talks about. That is what's crying. That's what, when I get handed that book for Father's Day, is just weeping like a baby on the couch, foolishly in front of my wife, probably waking up my kids, because there's a part of me that knows the truth of it. And it's a deeper kind of knowing. So that's why I say it's Christian. And that's why I say I see the Spirit of Christ in you, or Vervaeke. It's not because of a proposition that you've, melved.
I understand.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much what we have time for.
You also, would you call yourself a pragmatist?
Yeah. William James, like in the William James sense, yeah. I don't think, I haven't found any other, if pragmatism is to define truth or what's most real by its utility or how much it gets us closer to the top of the hierarchy, how adaptive it is, how much it's in the service of love or God.
Right. Okay. Well, see, my problem with pragmatism is that I don't know how you get pragmatism without a previously defined ethic, such as utility, such as that's encapsulated within utility. Also,
but I think this is Sam and Jordan's. This is where the crux of the conversation kind of happens. Is they're both saying like maybe it's kind of like an emergence. They're both saying, Sam's saying to Jordan like, "Hey, you're just grabbing this utility out of nowhere," and then Jordan saying to Sam, "Yeah, but your definition of fact already has my version of utility written into it." And I think that's true both ways. So it's kind of like which one works better. This is a very pragmatist thing to say.
Yeah. Also, so works better than
that's assuming the value.
Yeah, and also it sounds like it's for adaptiveness, like evolutionarily defined, and evolutionary theory I mean, this is controversial, but evolutionary theory also seems to be gotten by correspondence theory of truth, so a more scientific approach. So one uses evolutionary theory to define adaptiveness / usefulness, and then pulls pragmatism out of that when it was predicated in the correspondence theory of truth.
Right. And what I would say to that, when you say they pull pragmatism out of that, I would say exactly what Jordan said to Sam, which is any version of truth that you ever get is going to be assuming some sort of pragmatism. There's a reason that you select the fact that you do. There's a reason that you select the things, and we don't know that reason, but there is a reason to the universe. It's basically this is not William James, this is me now. In my version of pragmatism, it's kind of like at the very root, it's just saying like there seems to be a purpose. It's like assuming that there's a purpose, a telos, I think, to everything. It's like, well, that's a given. So now let's go on. Because I think any version of defining truth, you have to, at the very root, you have to say, well, this is a given. Just like Descartes tries to say,
I don't think that's true, because when you mention telos, so for example, Chris Langan bases his theory on something like telos. It's a material called telesis. Unbounded telesis is what the universe came from. And then from there, right. And then from there, I've just been editing it. Like, it is a great podcast though. I'm happy about that. Okay, so from there, then he has what I would call, but I don't know if he would call it, I call it a coherence theory of truth, which is distinct from pragmatism. There's three main ones. There's correspondence, pragmatism, coherence. And I'm wondering if there's an intersection between them. That's they're thought of generally as distinct, but I'm wondering if they can be interweaved. And there's perhaps a fourth theory. Well, there's many theories of truth, but a fourth, more than a tributary.
Wondering if they can be weaved together, or you see a way in which it might be probable that they get weaved together.
I just see the way that I just see glimmers that that there's a confluence between them. So that's why I don't subscribe just to pragmatism, nor to correspondence, nor to coherence. I've been swayed to the coherence side a bit more because of Chris Langan, but not completely, nor have I abandoned pragmatism or correspondence. And I'm just wondering if they ultimately are
some sort of trinity almost.
Yeah, if they consolidate.
And this is like Sam and Jordan get to, and like you and I are just mentioning, it just seems like they rely on each other. So I guess when you ask me, am I a pragmatist? It's like, well, yeah, but I'm not necessarily excluding that I'm not also something else. But I maybe I am. I think I don't know yet, but we'll see. We'll see over the course of my life where I kind of land, I guess. It seems to me like right now I just assume value. I assume that the center of everything is love. It's so obvious to me that I can't think or operate in any way that's not in service of that. And that makes me a pragmatist. These are words that are hard to nail down in some ways, but
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Curt. It was a great conversation.
It's a great conversation. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.